sorry. We're going streaking through the quad and into the gymnasium. Come on, everybody!
What is up, Fantasyland? We're here for our second tailgate of the night, our first Monday night tailgate, a huge game tonight. Russ's revenge game. I don't know if it can be called a revenge game, but my two guys tonight, we got obviously Dan back from Vegas, Cody also back on the district from Vegas. Guys, how was it? I'm super jealous. I know we're limited on time, but let the listeners know, how was Vegas, guys, for the big league stacks, big league draft. Sorry.
I'll let Cody go first, man. He this was his first experience, so.
I was gonna say Dan was the one. He stayed busy most of the time. We were in one big draft that was live. We did a couple online during the stay there. Only out there for a couple days. I think Dan stayed through the weekend, but had a great time. Not my first time in Vegas, but my first time drafting in Vegas. So the focus was different. It's more of a workman's like trip. Yeah, it was like a lot of. I think I only gambled for like a total of 45 minutes or an hour the whole trip, and it was weird because it was like we were just constantly in the room working, thinking about doing shows, doing this, doing that, and then drafting, strategy, all this shit. And but yeah, I mean, Dan, how was yours? Because I know you were in multiple drafts. I met you the first time up there in the Skylofts. So you're drafted in an auction draft. That one for me, as I think me and Matt were like the only two that were the onlookers. That was a fun one just to see some values. I know personally I like Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins. When I haven't shut up about those cheap values in that draft. But I'll kick it back to you. What was yours? How was your trip?
That was great. I mean, and I totally echo what you're saying about it's a business trip. That's exactly how I think of it. You know, when I go out there, you know, my plan is I'm probably not even going to do anything in the casinos. Usually I end up, you know, finding a half an hour, 45 minutes like you did and do something. But, you know, until my drafts are over, it just doesn't happen. I'm focused on, you know, what I got going on. And once you've been out a few times too, you know, there's a lot of people that you want to, you know, go by and talk to and everything else. So just trying to find the time to do that along with all the drafts. So I think I did 9 drafts while I was out there. So from Wednesday
I wish
night
I had my what's my Trump one? I am rich. I need that.
So yeah, it was a lot going on. I mean, you know, and 3 of those were auctions too. So you know, those definitely take it out of you. I had back-to-back auctions on Friday, and it's a ton of fun. But man, oh man, my eyes were spinning after the second one of those. So yeah, total a lot of fun. It was great to meet you out there too, Cody. Yeah, Cody and Matt, the Podfather, both stopped by our private auction, which was we have every year up in one of the suites in Aria, and it's a great environment. Some absolute sharks involved in that auction. So it's one of the funnest ones of the year for sure.
For sure. And I hope to join you guys out there next year. Guys, if you haven't done it, go check it out, myffpc.com. You got a link in the description below in the comments. You'll get a sign-up bonus, and you can even start playing now for next season to be in Vegas for the live drafts. And then there's a bunch of other leagues too. You know, we partner up with the FFPC, but Dan, I know you guys did some NFFC and other type of drafts down there as well.
Yeah, and Cody was doing some FFWC as well.
That's right, the FFWC. Yep, nice. Yeah, it was fun following you guys around on Twitter. A bunch of you guys were down there. Again, a good time. Make sure you guys check it out, guys. We got a big game tonight. We got I did a tailgate with Brian last week. Obviously, my Colts winning the Super Bowl pick might not be sounding so great right now when they can't even get past Houston. But we had a crazy weekend, guys. Like, you know, for week 1, there's always a bunch of surprises. It's always fun. If you want to find out why Drew Brees might be a name you want to know about, make sure you stick around till the end tonight. But let's get into it. Guys, if you're listening, try not to leave your burners on out in the parking lot. We don't want to blow up any cars like they did out there in Miami. I couldn't even believe that. I mean, this is a tailgate show, right? So we got to give some tailgate advice. You guys hear about that craziness?
I didn't.
I saw this tweet, and I've been, I mean, as Dan knows, in Minnesota, like it gets cold in the winter, and I've tailgated for years. We've had season tickets, whatever. And that was like one thing that people always talk about. They're like, yeah, make sure you don't leave your grill like under your car. People would just like, you know, put it under like the back end or whatever. And it was always like off, but they were hot. And the rumor was always like, if they're hot, they would like, you know, don't do it. It's just a rumor. Never seen anything like that. That picture that floated out there, and there was like 5 cars just burnt and charred. I was like,
that was like 13 cars, I think. That
13?
Yeah, 13 cars. Well, I saw it on the Pat McAfee show. He was saying,
wow,
13.
Wow.
So
yeah, I've never.
1912 asking where Theo is. First of all, Theo's jacked. I mean, you guys could. I know Cody is as well, but Cody's a young guy. So when you see a guy like Theo that's representing us old guys, jacked. Dan, how jacked is Theo, man? Is he like an offensive lineman? What are we talking here?
Man, he is he is definitely one brick house. That dude is. He's a workout machine. Strong as heck. I would not want to get on the wrong side of Theo for sure, or Cody for that matter. Cody's a little bit closer to my size, but definitely rocked up a lot more than me. Us old men, man, whatever we had, it's fading fast. So it's good to see the young guys like Cody, and making it happen, working out still. I work out, nothing happens anymore. It's like I feel like I'm wasting my time almost. I know I'm not, because I keep myself from going further backwards. But
exactly.
It's like, I definitely envy you young guys and being able to just put it together. And I know it is a lot of hard work. You guys put a lot into it as well. But definitely good to see you guys out there.
Yeah, once you get into the 40s, you're more trying to maintain the flexibility and some kind of muscle mass, and everything else working properly as opposed to building. But no, I'm glad you guys met up. I'm glad you guys had fun. Let's get into it. We want to get this out by 8 o'clock so everybody can get ready for the big game, set their lineups. We're going to touch on some week 1, obviously, reactions. We'll touch a bit on, what looking forward. But let's start it off with kind of macro. Cody, I'll go to you first. What's like the big lesson that you took from week 1 through all the craziness that we saw?
A big one, the game I want to focus really in on was the Falcons and Saints game. I rewatched this one and really got in depth on it, and both teams surprised me. Obviously, we thought Thomas, there's a chance he comes back. He's full bore through 3 quarters, one reception for 4 yards on 4 targets, and then that fourth quarter. And the Falcons defense, I want to reiterate that the Falcons defense was like polar opposite of what I expected. I know how strong these cornerbacks are. I got them both ranked top 10 on the cornerback ratings and PlayerProfiler. But the front 7 against the Saints offensive line was something to watch the first 3 quarters of the game. And then that fourth quarter, when they had the lead, they literally just pulled it back. It was 26-10, and they just pulled the horses back fourth quarter. And Winston and Thomas just, I think it was like 4 for 50 and 2 touchdowns, and the rest was history. But my big takeaway is the Falcons, I think, are going to be a team that's going to be in a lot of games. They're not going to win a lot of games, but they're going to be in a lot of games, and they're going to upset some teams. They're going to. This week they obviously have a tough one with the Rams, but I guess the Falcons being much better than we expected. They can run the ball hard. Cordero looks fantastic. I think he needs to be. I tweeted it out as well. I think he needs to be respected as like a top 15 pure running back. Looks a lot different than he did when he was with the Vikings and the Bears and all this stuff. So that was the big one that I had for the weekend.
And who's that sneaky guy behind Patterson that you talked about on your Twitter line? Guys, make sure you follow at Carpentier NFL. That's what it is, right? At Carpentier NFL?
Yep.
Sorry, my French is kicking in there. I always want to say Carpentier. Hey, mon, it's Carpentier.
Carpentier. That's what Carpentier. Yeah, that's how everyone. Yeah. Avery Williams. Damian Williams did get banged up, but Avery Williams, they've loved him through camp. He's a converted corner to Boise State, and he's been there for a couple years. I put a tweet up as well. He's close comparable to Dion Lewis. So is Devin Singletary, and likewise with Tyler Algier, comparable to Zach Moss. So the backfields kind of emanate, except for the difference is that Buffalo doesn't have a Cordero Patterson in front of them. But I think Avery, as a punt returner in the slot, as a satellite back, he looks very good as a number 2 in this backfield. And Algier was inactive, so I'm interested to see what they're going to do there. But stashing Avery Williams in my deepest league, so that's he's just an interesting undercover op type guy.
Dan, anything to add on that game, or maybe a takeaway from the first week? I know you're out with casinos playing blackjack and stuff, but whatever you can get out of it.
Yeah, I mean, watching the games in Vegas is a lot different. I mean, when you're trying to, at home, I'm just, I'm watching the red zone, and so it's kind of switching me from game to game, and then I have time afterwards to kind of go back and, look at different things from different games. But in Vegas, it's just kind of all hitting you at once. You got all these screens in front of you, and surrounded by a bunch of friends, and everybody's victory lapping and hot taking and everything else as the entire experience is unfolding. So you miss as much as you see, but that was definitely something that really surprised me too, Cody, was how good Atlanta looked. I mean, I thought their offense looked better against that Saints defense than I thought it would, and vice versa. I thought, I was like, for a while, I was going, what is going on with New Orleans' offensive line? They just don't seem to have time to throw, And then after a while, I'm like, maybe Atlanta is just that good now. Maybe they've taken that much of a step up on defense. So, I mean, it's still early. A lot can happen, but those were things that definitely opened my eyes as well, for sure, in that game.
Now, obviously, we talk Dynasty on here. We talk all formats of fantasy in leagues, and Cody and even Dan, like, you guys can approach this question any way you like. You can approach it with, on a dynasty level, who's someone that would be an interesting buy right now coming out of the first week, or maybe it's someone that you're buying into, whether that's waivers or maybe someone you were into buying coming into the season. So Cody, I'll go to you first. Again, week one, just there's that overreaction factor, right? There's that overreaction in the first week, even the second week, like creeping in. I always say I like to give it 4 weeks. Maybe that's too late on some cases, and it doesn't mean I'm ignoring everything, but I feel like I like to give it 4 weeks before I make any huge changes in how I approach the season. Where are you at after week one on an interesting buy?
One guy that I think a lot of people are leaning towards is the Clyde Edwards-Helaire output in week one, which was 7 carries, 42. And if you're anywhere around Player Profiler, our disdain, I guess you'd say, for Clyde. But the limited usage he had 10 touches. He had 74 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. Yeah, you got the JT shirt on. He scored 2 touchdowns. So a lot of people are going to lean into that 2 touchdowns and go, oh, damn, you should have had Clyde, should have drafted Clyde, should have done this, should have done that. My big thing is 10 carries. Obviously, we know he's not built to melt the game away, and I think that's where you're going to get a lot of your fantasy points late in those games. Like, that's why you like Derrick Henry. Now we don't as much, but because he's in there in the third quarter and the fourth quarter melting the game away, where this game, they're going to score 40. How many times is Kansas City going to score 35 plus? And every time they do that, they're just going to pull Clyde off the field and bring Pacheco in and bring McKinnon in. You look at the carries, Pacheco out-carried him 12-7. McKinnon had 4. And a lot of that, yes, was in the third and fourth quarter. But if you're expecting Kansas City to be good this year, you're going to be expecting Pacheco and his 210-pound frame, 215-pound frame to be on the field quite a bit and melting the clock. McKinnon also had a lot of run. He was in for 16 routes run in comparison to Clyde's 14, 4 targets in comparison to Clyde's 3, 36% snap share. Clyde had a 35% snap share. So, I mean, unless we think Kansas City is going to suck and they're going to be passing a lot, I'm not in on the Clyde comeback train, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I'm maybe a little bit more in on it. I kind of started buying. I faded in most of the offseason. I kind of started buying in a little bit late, just as his price had kind of dripped down into the a lot of times late 7th round, even early 8th sometimes, and so that was a price that started making a little bit more sense to me. I'm not like guns a-blazing for that he's going to be an RB1 or anything like that. I think it's much more likely he's going to be an RB2. He's going to have some useful weeks, and there are going to be times where he gets outscored by Pacheco. There are going to be times where McKinnon does more damage than CH does, but I think he's a playable asset in a flex or an RB2. I also think if anybody gets frustrated with Pacheco or McKinnon and drops them in your league, you want to snap those guys up because any injury in this backfield is going to automatically, elevate the other two. So I have all of them in various formats, and not all on the same team, but I have plenty of shares of all of them because this is an offense you definitely want shares of. So that's kind of where I'm at on that.
I can agree on that.
I'm going to stay in the division. I like me some Mike Williams right now, coming off of 2 for 10, and Darnell Mooney coming out of a typhoon with whatever. Even that Chicago offense. I mean, pick your favorite, whatever. It's not like they're top 2 or 3. We always talk about the narrow target tree, right, Dan, out there in Chicago. So for me, those are two receivers I'm looking at. Dan, do you have anyone else to throw on there?
Yeah, those are definitely worth looking at. I think other games, Amon-Ra St. Brown, showed that he's going to definitely be a big part of that offense. I was really interested to see how, getting back to the Atlanta game, how Michael Thomas was going to do. He had very limited snaps from what I saw. Cody, do you know how many, like, what was he running? Probably, it looked to me like maybe 35-40% of snaps. Have you looked into that at all?
So I have it all up in spreadsheets. I don't have it all up on the website yet. That'll be up on the website in the morning, but I can pull up here in the spreadsheet just one sec.
Okay, I'm just curious as to because I'm just watching the game on a TV.
I know he got
seven other
targets,
games going on.
8
all right,
targets, 5 for 57
I got 30 routes for Thomas, 30 for Olave, 29 for Landry, but only a 58% snap share for Thomas and a 71-70 for Olave and Landry.
Okay.
So yeah, he was limited.
Thomas played a little bit more than I thought, but yeah, he played well.
But he was limited in the grand scheme, right? He ran
Right.
8 and 7 less. He was in there for less snaps than the other guys, and I mean Landry. Look, speaking of that, I mean back to that team. Landry has some juice. He made some plays yesterday. It looked good. Olave feels like a ticking time bomb. I've talked about him plenty over the summer, but he just feels like a ticking time bomb. They don't even need him. Landry and Thomas, like in the fourth quarter, the way they just clicked. And Atlanta treated it like garbage time, and Winston thrives in that kind of format. But when they got the ball in their hand, Landry and Thomas, it looked like 3 years ago. So it's a good looking trio.
Any concerns with
sure.
Camaro, guys, with going for 39 yards on the ground and only 3 for 7 in the air?
He didn't look. I'm not worried about him, but he just didn't look the same. Like there was rewatching it, he didn't pop at all. It was just like, oh, they're handing it off. Like if you didn't know who the hell Camaro was, you're just like, oh, they're just handing it off to a back. Right. They're just popping it off to a back. Like I'm not gonna say it, but Taysom looked like he had more energy, I guess you'd say. And I'm not a Taysom guy at all, but there just wasn't a lot of energy behind what Camaro was doing yesterday at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Camaro definitely was not popping off the screen in any way, shape, or form, and Taysom was. But, also Taysom was barely on the field from what I saw.
I think I had like what he was in for 4 Wildcat snaps. I think that was like all I had him in for.
Yeah.
Which was like.
So it's tough to buy into that, from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah.
Unless he starts getting some more snaps, and he can be super, super productive on the snaps he gets, but if he's not getting that money, then he's probably best to let somebody else overpay for it.
100%.
It's crazy. You look at the top. I'm looking at the top receiving stats, like the top receivers, and it's literally like basically the way we drafted these guys, like more or less. You mix it up like Kupp, Adams, AJ Brown, Chase, Jefferson, Pittman, Diggs. So you see those high end receivers and how valuable they were getting them early. Especially those top 5, right? Dan, we talked about that top 5 tier that we wanted to pick off. JJ was our favorite, but if you could end up with any one of these guys in the first round, especially at the back end, you were golden.
Yeah, I think so too. That was, basically all of the early wide receivers popped the way you want to see them pop, except for CeeDee Lamb. I'm interested to get Cody's thoughts on this, but I mean, to me, Lamb just didn't look like he. I don't know. He looked kind of disinterested out there, in a way, to me. He had
which could be the whole offense, right? Then I mean, now with Dak out, and
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be tough for sure. But what do you think, Cody?
I mean, look, my thing is like, look who he's playing with, and obviously we were high on Jalen Tolbert this year coming in, and he was inactive, which there seemed to be some rumblings about that because of him not being up to speed and stuff. But like, Chris Collinsworth is hyping up Noah Brown, and it's like, yeah, Noah Brown might be like what Dallas is, but like on a talent level, there's a reason you don't even know that name unless you're like an Ohio State guy or a Big Ten alum. Like he's not on that level. He shouldn't be the number 2 for Dallas. They shouldn't be running out Dennis Houston week 1. And that puts a lot of stress on Lamb. And so if Lamb's out there, and I haven't rewatched it to kind of see in close how they're playing coverage on him, but if they're out there doubling him every play and he can't get open and everybody knows that he's the main target and it's Schultz and otherwise they're going to run the ball, like it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, and it's the growing pains he's going to go through. It's kind of like the feeling that remember Juju when he was playing with AB, and it's like, okay, maybe the disrespect we have for Cooper, Cooper on the other side is there's an element there, and you take away AB and Juju obviously disappeared. I'm not saying CD's going to disappear, but it presents an entirely new challenge for a guy like that.
Yeah, I think that offense really needs Gallup back in a big way.
Big time.
I think he's a very underrated wide receiver. And to me, Dak just looked off the entire game. I don't know if there was more to that foot injury than what they were letting on, but he was more inaccurate than what I normally see from him.
They were like saying before the game, remember they did a pan-in on him. I don't know if you could hear it if you were out in Vegas or not, but they did a pan-in on him, and they were like, Dak Prescott said this week that this is the best he's ever felt the last 3 years, and this, and this. And then it was obviously he just did not play like they said he did. Like he didn't play as if he felt as good as he's ever felt.
Right. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. It was just tough to watch. I mean, he was so inaccurate. He was behind, he was high, just wasn't hitting the receivers.
So I had this in kind of a later section, but let's throw it in now that we're talking about the Cowgirls, as our crazy chat, shout out to the chat, is calling them. Are the Cowboys dead now? Are you buying some of these pieces thinking, you're going to get a discount? Are you just, finding a replacement at this point? Like, how do you see this offense moving forward? Is it Jimmy G season? Like, how do you see this, kind of playing out for fantasy owners that have part of this offense in their rosters?
I'll go first. I saw a tweet somebody made earlier today. It was like something about sending Pollard to San Francisco and then Jimmy back. That makes sense for both teams, given the injuries that we've seen happen. But if they don't make a move and it's Cooper Rush, I think we've been down this road a few times. I think I really don't know like who's on the street that they're going to bring. Obviously I made that tweet earlier, but it was kind of more so of a joke than anything, but they got a tough schedule. It's not easy by any means. Obviously Cincinnati had a tough game, had a bad game last week, but there's no slouch. New York, Washington looks way improved. LA, Philadelphia, Detroit, like that's a tough stretch almost till Christmas, and then till Halloween, and then the Bears, who just beat San Francisco. They got a tough stretch going through that bye week, and they don't find it. Jimmy G could be the savior, but I don't know.
Drew Brees, Cody. I saw your tweet.
I know. That just felt right. I was like the Sean Payton thing. I was like, I'm not a big fan of McCarthy, and I was like, you know what, this might be fine. I don't think that's ever going to happen though. But the Jimmy G thing is interesting. My problem is he's beautiful, and if you bring him to Dallas, there's going to be some controversy next year if he wins any games at all, and it's going to be like Dak or Jimmy in 2023 because Jimmy could be the quarterback of the America's team, and it's like that whole. I don't even want to get into that, but I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what Jerry's thinking right now. In this tweet that came out an hour ago, somebody said, "What did he say? Mike McCarthy's got a handful of quarterbacks in the league that he's interested in." It's like, all right, well, there's only like 4 good backups that are like capable of winning a football game. So, good luck.
Yeah, exactly. And McCarthy, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't think much of him as a coach. He managed to take Aaron Rodgers and get a total of 1 Super Bowl win out of him. That takes some doing, I think. And every time he's on the sideline, he just looks like he just opened his calculus final after not showing up to class all year. The expression on his face, he just looks lost and confused. But anyway, let's move on to some different games. What about we kind of talked a little bit about Amon-Ra St. Brown. What'd you think on the Eagles side of that? Anything that stood out to you, Cody?
Jalen Hurts. That's about it, right? And then that connection with AJ Brown early on, I was a little worried, like the first couple drives, and then boom, the connection hit, and then I think he had over 100 some yards by halftime. Hurts looked a little inconsistent. They got the running game going, which I really wasn't sure if they were going to be able to run on Detroit. I thought they'd be able to pass better than run, and they ended up running for over 210 yards and 4 touchdowns. So Philadelphia looks good. That offensive line looks healthy, looks back to normal. Hurts still inconsistent as a passer. He's under 66%. I think he's only been over it 4 times in his first 20 career games, but rushing, 90 yards on the ground. Hurts looks great. I had him in my one cash lineup this week, and him and Brown, so I felt good about that. But I mean, I got to give it to Detroit. They kind of they almost pulled the Saints thing, where the Saints came back on the Falcons, but there wasn't enough time left on the clock for them to make some magic happen. But I think the Eagles are going to be a tough team to beat this year. They didn't even use Devonta Smith. They didn't throw the ball to Quez one time. It was really just A.J. Brown show, in my opinion, and Jalen Hurts. So I think this is going to be the team to beat in the NFC East. I don't think it's really going to be close.
Cody, Wheeler agrees with you. He's saying Peyton coaching Dallas next year.
There you go.
I think we all know that's going to happen one way or another. I don't think McCarthy's going to be able to save his job, and especially if Dak's out for a couple months.
Guys, smash the like, smash the subscribe for Cody. Dan back from Vegas. We're bringing you the goodness before tonight's game, Monday Night Football. Before we get to tonight's game, anyone that I know you talked about CEH. Anyone else that maybe we're kind of not buying or that we're selling if we're talking dynasty or trades?
So Greg Dortch, a lot of people maybe forget about this name. Remember him from a few years ago. I love Greg Dortch. I love the story of Greg Dortch, but don't read too much into it because Rondale's going to be back. Hollywood didn't get a lot of targets. AJ Green didn't get a lot. Ertz was still banged up. I mentioned to pick him up in Dynasty on my show last week in deeper formats, but to expect this, I did not expect this output. I think he had 9 targets on Sunday, and he looked fantastic. But outplaying Andy Isabella was the target leader for the Cardinals. It's a guy that on the surface, it's like, oh, we should go pick this guy up and go buy him. Don't go buy him. You can add him in Dynasty, but damn sure don't go trade for him. It's just kind of a guy that you got to be cautious about. I know people want to run out and grab the new shiny toy, but just remember, injuries, and I think
don't always try to be the smart guy in your league, right?
Yeah, don't overthink it. It's one thing when you can get him for free and you can stash him in certain formats, but limit your expectation because Hollywood only had 6 targets. And Ertz didn't hardly do anything. Rondale wasn't playing. Like there's just a lot of things that are going to change. This might be the ceiling for Greg Dortch.
Yeah. Sorry, Dan. Theo's getting called out as a strength coach out in Dallas by
That's why he's not here. He's out in Dallas. He went from Vegas to Dallas.
It's hilarious.
Could just have Cody do that too. Either way.
Yeah.
And Noah Rodell could join him.
Yep. Squats.
Yep. You guys would have it all covered for sure.
So let's do, before we keep going, let's do a quick question from the chat because you guys have been awesome tonight. We love when you guys come hang out with us. Where is that? Shrikant Reddy-Nanga. My RBs, 1 PPR, 0.2 PPC are Dobbins, Singletary, Henderson, D. Harris, and Rashad White. Would you drop Rashad White for Jeff Wilson with 50% fab? D. Hillard, Burkhead, Warren are other options. Thanks. So looking at the waiver wire coming up, guys, we obviously have some opportunities here with Mitchell getting hurt, Harris out in Pittsburgh. So this kind of ties in nicely with our little injury discussion that we want to have. So I guess he's asking, should he drop Rashad White to pick up Wilson or any of these other options? Cody, I'll go to you first.
I'm going to lean no because Rashad White's ceiling is much higher. We saw him get used last night. He looked good in his usage, had 6 carries last night, was targeted a couple times. Rashad White's a guy that poses way more upside, much more upside with a Fournette, who I think is also, Fournette looked great last night, but he's important to this team. We've seen injuries happen before with Fournette. That'd be a guy I'd like to stash more so than a Jeff Wilson, where you can't trust what Shanahan's going to do. He's going to have Jeff Wilson. Yes, he's bursty, but he's also way injury prone. You also have Tyrion Davis-Price there, and they could go pick somebody else up on the street. They also have Jordan Mason, a rookie. It's you're really not telling what Shanahan's going to do, so I'm not dropping all my money on Jeff Wilson this week.
Dan, this is an interesting question. I don't know if you saw Hilliard. He was part of that offense. He was really involved, especially catching the ball. And we've talked about this San Fran backfield a million times, including Jeff Wilson. So where are you on this question? Does it just depend on depth and kind of where you're at with the whole dropping Rashad White?
Yeah, to expand on what Cody was saying, Wilson, it's pretty tough to trust because we all want to say, well, with Mitchell gone, Wilson's next man up, and while that might be true, the other backs are going to rotate in. But most importantly, I think Deebo Samuel is just going to go back to doing a lot of the things that he did last year when Mitchell was out. So
and quarterback, and you get Lance.
Yeah, exactly, which is definitely different than last year. And then as far as let me scroll up.
What do you think about Warren in comparison to Hilliard?
I like Warren a lot. I think Hilliard's
I would prioritize Warren over Hilliard for sure.
Because he's gonna have more of a prominent role. Obviously now with Harris gone, but even without Harris being injured prior, you could see that he had that capability of getting most of the touches if need be. Whereas Hilliard's more of a pass catching guy where he's going to have a limited role, in my opinion.
Hilliard got very fortunate with his tough touches. He scored twice, and that's great. But on limited touches like that, you're not going to see that every week. So Burkhead, obviously you buy the role there, but he's 32 years old, I think, and that's pretty tough to expect him to maintain it long term. But if you have the short term need and you can fit him onto your roster, definitely worth rostering. And as Cody said, it's tough to drop Rachaad White for those guys because of the ceiling that he has. As I'm looking at the running backs here, Dobbins, Singletary, Henderson, Harris, I'd be looking to try to consolidate upwards, and trade two of those for one better running back. And then
even Rachaad White,
and by that you can consolidate roster spots too, and then you would have room to pick up some of these guys as well to kind of fill in the back of your roster. So, if you can do a trade, I think that'd be the first way I'd go at it.
Yeah, I like that call, trading up versus, and then even look at your other positions. If you can't make a trade, do you have too much depth at tight end or at receiver that you can part ways with, that you can find somewhere else on the waiver wire?
Yeah, and here's the thing with Najee. I mean, the team is kind of saying, oh, he might be back in next week. I don't buy it.
No,
at all.
a bit.
Nope. I think he's probably out. Yeah, 4 weeks. I think that's probably a pretty good guess, and it could be longer.
The Harry Snowman giving us some inside scoop here.
Yeah, one of my friends is he's a foot doctor, and you know him as well, JD. Noah, old Noah from the hard way. Go with what you got, and he's very worried about how Najee's going to do if he re-injured that was Frank. He thinks that could be it for this year.
Fuck.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of Harris, but anytime one of the big guys drop, it sucks.
Yep, definitely.
So we talk about overreactions. Are there any stats or and we've already mentioned some. So just on top of what we mentioned, if we don't have any, we'll move forward. But are there any stats that are deceiving right now? Like that because you look at targets versus catches or versus yardage. Sometimes that'll give you a hint. Is there one that stands out to you, Cody, coming out of week one with the games we've seen so far?
I guess can I kind of turn the question kind of sideways? Like there's one that it's half deceiving, but it's half interesting at the same time. It's that Chase Claypool ran 91% of his routes in the slot, and he got 6 carries. Like this is one where it almost feels like I can't tell if it's deceiving or not because he's not the focal point of the offense like Deontay and Freiermuth seem to be. Obviously Najee out of the backfield, but they're using Claypool out of the backfield similar to, Cordero. It seems like his career arc is turning into sort of like this Cordero thing, but I'm using him in the slot as the big speed slot. I like that, but it leaves me, I don't know, it leaves me questioning what his role is. What is I know it seems obvious, 91% of his routes are in the slot, but okay, what is this mean for him? I guess it'd be my big thing.
Like, is that sustainable versus does he become a gadget player?
Exactly. Does he become what, I know Cordero had those big, massive games last year. And now Cordero looks like a legit running back this year. does Claypool become a guy that you can't even play because it's like, well, he's going to get 6 carries and have 36 rushing yards, which is literally 3 fantasy points, and then he's going to get targeted, and they're going to be these dump offs in the flats and just, you know, like there's nothing there for him. There's nothing there from a fantasy perspective. It feels deceiving because you're looking at it and it's like, well, there's 12 opportunities, which is tied for the most on the team, but he finished with 8 points.
Right. Yeah, just kind of a, you know, so like eating a bowl full of Rice Krispies, and an hour later you're hungry.
Exactly.
So
that's the one I've had a tough time with. Basically moved tight end. Yeah, I mean, essentially, right? Matt talked about that coming out of college that he should have been a tight end, but it's just one of those things that like, you see it and it's like, wow, they're gonna use him, and it's like, yeah, but what does that mean? That doesn't mean shit for us because we know carries aren't. They aren't worth as much as if he had 12 targets. I think we'd be looking at it a little bit differently. But
yeah, and our friend Srikanth in the chat is asking Bywell and Josh Jacobs, and that's kind of for that same reason. I'm not real big on. I don't know how low you're buying on him. I think he's going to have a lot of empty calorie type carries, where he's just kind of running between the 20s. I do think he's probably the guy they're going to look to on the goal line, so he does have that going for him. But other than that, he's just not getting enough of the third down offense, 2-minute offense, that kind of stuff.
Dan, saying send him to Green Bay.
Can I ask you a question about Jacobs? Because obviously you're deeper into the high stakes than I am, and just seeing where Jacobs has gone the last month. And he says to buy low right now. He's asking if he should buy low. It seems to me, based on the last right, I'll have Amir Abdullah talk. He had 1 no carries. Amir, no carries, no targets, no nothing. Brandon Bolden catches a touchdown. Out of the backfield, though, was like all Josh Jacobs. And I know it was only 10 carries because they were losing and whatnot. But it feels like, I mean, if you're playing the stock value, I mean, it feels like his actually value kind of went up because it's like, all right, he's the guy.
Yeah, I mean, in that sense, it probably has. I just
kind of like if they were winning this game, if they were up 17-3 instead of down 17-3, it can be assumed that he probably would have ended up with like 20 to 25 carries, right? That's what it feels
maybe.
like.
Yeah, I don't know. Like. I mean, you also have to wonder if with McDaniel, if he would just kind of fuzz some of that out to the other running backs a little bit.
True.
So, I guess looking at it in the specifics of his particular situation, I kind of put Josh Jacobs right in there with Singletary, Henderson, and I'm looking at that. I'm going, it's really still not an upgrade. You want to get a little bit more of an upgrade than that if you can.
Which I'm looking at some of the last drafts. Jacobs going in the 7th between Gibson and CEH. And then guys you're mentioning, Dan, Singletary going 2 rounds later.
Yep.
So maybe not necessarily the buy low, that we thought is right now in Jacobs. T. Higgins, you from one chase to the other chase in Cincinnati. You guys know my love for Higgins, one of my most owned pieces on the FFPC. I want to cry. Concussion, couple weeks. Is this couple weeks, and how does this affect other pieces around there, Dan?
You never can tell with concussions. I mean, he could be back and playing, this coming week. He could be playing in week 2, or he could be still struggling with it in week 5 or 6. You just don't know. So I guess the way I look at it is, unless I hear that it's really bad, I'm probably assuming he misses a week at most. But you need to have a short-term solution to get around that for sure.
100% agree. It's. I mean, the role's pretty clear. Higgins is over there, but I think you only push up Chase even more now. Boyd vastly ran more slot routes than anybody else on the team, 43-12, and then Hurst was 3rd. So I could see Boyd maybe moving out to the outside. Stanley Morgan's the next guy in line there. I could see Boyd moving to the outside, and then Hurst. Hurst is going to be the one, I think, that outside of Boyd, obviously Boyd's the clear cut. This guy's going to take the next step up. That's why I loved having him as like an FFWC. He always ended up being my 6th or 7th receiver, and it was like, this just feels him and Jacoby Myers. It was like every other draft, Jacoby Myers or Tyler Boyd. But then Hayden Hurst as well. That's one of my most owned guys on Underdog. this is exactly why you draft guys like Boyd and Hurst, is because injuries happen. And it's the way life is. It's the way fantasy is. Mixon also 9 targets, second on the team behind Chase. Mixon's going to continue to get that work like we've seen, and I think this only benefits everybody around him. But as far as Higgins coming back, I don't know. It feels like every time this happens, it's always at least 1 week. But again, like you just said, concussions are you can't tell. You can never tell. It's all feels like it's all team dependent.
Yeah, let's hope it's sooner rather than later. I know my portfolio will hope so for sure. And I just realized I was going to jump into tonight's game, Denver, Seattle. I'm pretty sure I bet Denver 6.5, and now the line is actually 6. Cody, what's your call on tonight's game?
I saw the over-under at 43.5, and I was like, ooh. I could see a world where this is like a 13-0 game, 20-0 game. I could also see a world where Denver puts 43 on the Seahawks.
As long as it's 43-0, I'm happy, because mine was at 44 and I bet the under.
Yeah, there you go. It's an interesting number. I don't see a world where Seattle loses, and if they win, I don't see a world where Denver. Sorry, I got the damn Russell thing in my head. I don't see a world where Denver loses to Seattle, just given all the circumstances. Obviously, Kenneth Walker is out. Has an amazing record at home.
That's with Russell as a quarterback.
I was just gonna say this. Like, I think you got to throw all that out the window. I think you got to do the opposite there. But yeah, I'm taking Denver and the points every time. I'd probably lean under here though. Yeah.
Dan, what do you got on this game?
Definitely the under. What was the spread on it? Did you say?
It was 6. Right now it's 6. It was 6.5 this morning.
Yeah, I think I would probably. I don't know. I'm going to preface this with the fact that I got crushed betting on road favorites Sunday. That proved to be a bad strategy for me. So I won't tell you what to do on that, but the unders all weekend long were definitely the better bet. And I think it's just kind of the fact that there's not as much, the offenses aren't playing as much in the preseason. For most teams, and so they're getting out there and they're still trying to get the kinks worked out, and so that maybe puts things a little bit more in favor of the defense. But so I would definitely take the under. I don't know. I think this might be one of those places where it's ugly, but you just take Seattle and the 6 points.
Yeah, I've got like a 27-10 type of game for Denver. That's what I have in my head. Hopefully it plays out, guys. Hopefully all your prop bets and bets on tonight's game play out, and all your fantasy. I'm hoping all my Denver stacks crush tonight. I know that. Cody, one of our favorite guests. That's why we keep asking you to come back. We appreciate you joining us. Remind the people where they can find you and all your goodness.
I'm on Twitter at Carpentier NFL. You can find everything else I do on Player Profiler, on YouTube. Over there, Undercovered Ops will be live on there on Wednesdays, and then the Propcast on Fridays. Doing a live show on Thursdays, and then the cornerback rankings, offensive line rankings over on the website there. Everything is on playerprofiler.com. That's where all my stuff's at. Appreciate you guys having me on as always, man.
We appreciate you, and we appreciate you guys in the chat. You guys were awesome tonight. My buddy watches this show, and he was asking me where you can get some GOAT gear. So obviously we haven't been pushing it enough. Guys, there's a link in the comments. Go check it out. Viridian Global. That's where I got my JT shirt, JT28, and the GOAT gear is fresh, guys. It's comfy, it looks good, it's simple, it's got the sweet logo. You want to rock it as you crush your league mates on the weekly. We appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Good luck. We'll check you all later.